What's up guys and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over the entire DPS tier list for the current phase in Season of Discovery, Phase 7. We are inside Naxxramas. Now, this video is for anyone who's coming back, maybe skipped the AQ phase, coming back from not playing at all since Phase 1 or 2, or maybe playing for the first time, and you want to make sure that the class you're picking is kind of close to the top. So if that's you, this video is going to be right up your alley. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so for this tier list, we have an S+ tier, an S tier, an A tier, a B tier, a C tier, and a D tier. And the reason why I made an S+ tier is because Destruction Warlocks are absolutely dominating the competition inside Naxxramas. They are blowing every other class out of the water. They are the S+ tier. Now, moving on down to Frost Mage. Frost Mages are doing okay, but I wouldn't say that they are one of the best DPS. They're kind of low mid-pack, so I would put them in the B tier. Now, as for our Ret Paladins, this is their time to shine. They are absolutely pumping, and with the right gear, they are going to be up in the S tier. Ret Pallies are doing really good. They're in a really good spot. So if you've been playing a Pally this entire time throughout Season of Discovery and you've felt like you've got the short end of the stick compared to Shamans over on the Horde side, now is your time to shine. Play that Ret Paladin. As for Shadow Priests are in a really good spot. They have a really fun rotation. They're doing tons of damage, and Shadow Priests are sitting pretty nicely up in the A tier. As for Assassination Rogues, they're doing pretty well also. This is the strongest rogue spec currently, and Assassination Rogues are sitting around the A tier, a little bit under the Shadow Priest. But sadly, as for Combat Rogues, time to shine has definitely come and passed in this phase. Combat Rogues are not doing that great. I would actually put Combat Rogues in C tier right above Tank Rogues. They're pretty much doing almost the exact same damage as Tank Rogues right now. So Combat Rogues, if that was you, I would definitely consider changing specs. As for Sub, kind of the same situation as Combat. You can definitely DPS a little bit better. You're doing a little bit more damage, but for Sub Rogues, you're going to be in the B tier, and you're going to probably be at the bottom of the B tier after we finish filling this out. As for Balanced Druids, though, Balanced Druids are just crazy right now. Balanced Druids do a ton of damage. They're a lot of fun to play, and everybody wants a Balanced Druid in their group, maybe even a few of them, right? So Balanced Druids are sitting up in the S tier. And as for our Shamans, kind of sorry but not sorry, Shamans have been broken throughout all of Season of Discovery. They have been insane in terms of DPS. Elemental Shamans right now are sitting kind of below the Frost Mage in the B tier, and sad to say that Enhancement isn't doing any better than that. It's actually doing worse than Elemental, also in the B tier. It's definitely playable. It's above Sub Rogue, I would say, on DPS, but it depends on the player there. The thing with Season of Discovery Phase 7 is it's kind of now this bring the player, not the class thing, right? Everyone can DPS and do well, but it really depends on the player. These rotations are a little bit more complex. I would say a lot more complex than Vanilla WoW rotations were. I would say it's on par with kind of like Wrath of the Lich King, almost Cataclysm style rotations for DPSing on all of these classes. So Elemental Shamans and Enhancement Shamans are definitely down in the B tier, but in the hands of the right player, they definitely can pump. Now, Affliction Warlocks, definitely in a good spot. It's very similar to playing a Wrath of the Lich King Affliction Warlock, so if that's something you love, Affliction Warlock is definitely a good pick, and they're sitting pretty up in the A tier. Whereas it's not so much the same story for Demo Locks. Demo Locks currently are not performing that well. It is still definitely a viable spec if you do want to play it, but Demo Locks are sitting down in the B tier right under, or maybe even right before Sub Rogues. I would put Demo Lock in front of Sub Rogues in terms of DPS. So it is playable. It's something you can play, but you have two other specs that are just blowing all the other competition out of the water. So unless Demo is something you really just want to play because of the class fantasy, I would suggest playing Destruction or Affliction. Now, Arms Warrior, this is just off the table, D tier. Not even close to competing with other classes in on the meter in Naxxramas. It's not even close. I'm not even going to put them in C tier. I don't really think you should be playing this spec in Raid at all. So if you're playing Arms Warrior, keep it for PvP, but in terms of raiding in Naxxramas, you don't really want to be playing that. You could definitely play Fury Warrior, though. Fury Warriors are actually in a pretty good spot. I would say Fury Warriors are in A tier, right under or before Shadow Priest. We'll let Shadow Priest have this one and put them before Fury Warriors, but they're kind of neck and neck in terms of damage. As for our Feral Druid DPS, and this is very welcome on the Alliance side because it's been so hard finding wild strikes throughout all of Season of Discovery. You're always spamming for that Feral Druid to join your group so that you could have wild strikes, and let's be honest, they kind of sucked for most of Season of Discovery in terms of raw DPS output, and now in Phase 7 inside Naxxramas, it's kind of their time to shine. Feral Druids are right under Destruction Warlocks. They're in the S tier. They are not quite pushing those Destruction Warlock numbers in raid, but they are definitely second in line, giving them the top of the S tier spot. Now, as for this BM Hunter, we're going to use this as the Melee Hunter icon, right? Melee Hunter is actually in a great spot. It's actually what I'm currently playing in Season of Discovery. Melee Hunter is doing extremely well. It's doing the best out of all 3 Hunter specs, and that's kind of surprising. We didn't expect to see that. So Melee Hunters are at the top of the A tier, right above Shadow Priest. They're kind of neck and neck. Like I said, most of this is bring the player, not the class in Season of Discovery, which feels really good. You can kind of play whatever you want, and as long as you're a good player, there is a spot for you in a raid for some reason. Melee Hunter is also a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. I'm usually a Fury Warrior main. I switched over to Melee Hunter this phase, and honestly, I don't regret it. I'm having an absolute blast. It's different. It's a different way to play Hunter, and it's a lot of fun. It's a super simple rotation, too. If that's something you're looking for, I would suggest Melee Hunter. But yeah, they're in a really good spot, top of the A tier for Melee Hunter. And let's move on down to Marksmanship Hunter. Marksmanship Hunters are also doing really well. In terms of raw numbers, they're getting squeaked out a tiny bit by Melee Hunters, but all 3 Hunter specs are pretty much on par, so you can play whichever version of Hunter you want and perform super well inside Naxxramas. So for Marksmanship Hunters and Survival Hunters, I'm going to put them all in the A tier as well. Pretty much right on par with Shadow Priest, either a little bit above, a little bit below, really depends on the player and your gear. If you're Bist out, you could probably squeak out a little bit more damage than Shadow Priest, but all 3 Hunter specs are performing really well in Naxxramas, so anyone who's playing a Hunter, this is a good time for you. You could play any spec you want and really enjoy it. As for our Arcane Mages, though, Arcane Mages, not really in a spot to be DPS at all. However, their DPS is extremely low, but Arcane Mage healing has taken a turn for the better. It's really good. I actually love bringing Arcane healing mages into my groups because they do pump DPS and heal at the same time. Now, they're not putting up the same numbers as, let's say, a Frost Mage or even an Elemental Shaman, but their healing is just so good now that it's almost hard to not take one into your raid. So Arcane Mages, I'm going to put them at the top of the B tier, and this is not for pure damage. They're going to be right below Frost. This is because of their healing, right? A good Elemental Enhancement Demo or Sub-Rogue is going to outpump an Arcane Mage in terms of raw damage, but the fact that the Arcane Mage is bringing all that healing to the group as well, they deserve a B tier spot. In terms of their raw damage, Arcane Mage would be below Combat Rogues, kind of right with Arms Warriors in the D tier. I just can't justify putting them that low because of what they bring to the raid. The healing is out of control. It's really good now, and it looks like a lot of fun to play. And last but not least, we have our Fire Mages. Fire Mages are in a really, really good spot. They are above Balanced Druids in terms of raw damage. They look really fun to play. The spec has really come into its own in this phase, and it's really nice to see Fire Mages start pumping again. I absolutely love it, and I think that they're in a really good spot. So if you're a mage player and you want to just be pumping as much damage as possible, Fire is definitely going to be your spec, although Frost is viable as well. And if you want to do kind of a hybrid of DPSing and healing at the same time, maybe have an easier time joining groups, Arcane Mage would be your choice. So there it is, guys. That is my DPS tier list for Season of Discovery Phase 7. We are in Naxxramas currently. We have so much to look forward to with the Scarlet Raid coming, possibly next phase or maybe by the end of this phase, and then we don't really know what's going on after that. I'm actually going to be working on a video talking about the future of Classic, the future of SOD, and what I personally think we could see over the next 10 to 12 months. But that's a, for another video. I'm going to be talking about that later. Anyways, I really hope this helped you guys out if you were coming back from a long break, maybe starting for the first time. Maybe you quit in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3 like a lot of people did. I hope this helps you out and helps you pick the class that you want to play. It really is a bring the player, not the class situation in Season of Discovery. I gotta say, Blizzard did a great job with balancing all of these DPS specs, and you really kind of have the option to just play whatever you want, whatever you find that's fun. So if this video helped you guys out, hit that like button. That really helps me out. Share it with somebody who's thinking about coming back, and jump over to my Twitch, twitch.tv/hammerdance. I stream Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.